What the Tech is sponsored by Hover.com. Domain names made simple. Go to gfq.hover.com and get 10% off your entire purchase. And by Stitcher Radio. Listen on the go via the Stitcher mobile app. For more information, go to stitcher.com/GFQ. Welcome everybody to What the Tech. I'm your host Andrew Zarian, and as always, I'm joined by the man himself, Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Hello, sir.
How you feeling this week?
Better.
Much better, right?
Yeah, not completely better, but better.
All right, so the flu is totally out. You're good today. You're a little sniffly.
Yeah.
But it's all right, you know. I think everybody was sick last week. I think everybody's feeling it at this point, but I think slowly everyone is getting better now.
Sure.
I had the worst allergy attack last Wednesday, and I had a big meeting, and it happened during a meeting, and I looked like a lunatic because my eyes were tearing the entire time. So I'm sure these people thought I was crying.
You should have just said, I haven't been this happy in a long time.
Yeah. I've never been this happy ever to sit down with two boring suits and discuss nothing that has to do with me. So this is What the Tech. This is a show where we discuss things happening in technology, not necessarily tech news, but things that we're interested in, Paul. And there's many things that we're interested in. I want to begin today's show with the botch of the century, some people are calling it. And that is the Nokia Lumia launch on Easter Sunday. Now, we were tweeting about this and we were making jokes here and there, and I was thinking, I'm like, maybe that was a strategic reasoning why they launched this device on Easter Sunday.
It's neat that you think that's what it was, but probably not.
It was not that.
I don't think so.
I mean, have you heard anything like why they would release this on Easter Sunday?
I was curious to see whether Microsoft or somebody would contact me and posit an explanation, but no, I have not heard why.
I mean, there's always a reason for everything, right? I mean, that's how I see it.
I think that AT&T releases their new phones on a certain day of the month, and that would happen to be the day. Obviously, the phone, or maybe not obviously, but in case you didn't know, the phone was originally supposed to be released on March 18th, about a month, or not quite a month earlier. I don't know. But, what I was told is that depending on where you were in the country, the United States, that is, you could have gone into a store and bought it on Sunday. But where I live and where I think a lot of people live, everything was closed on Sunday because of the holiday.
Yeah, yeah. But, I mean, a Sunday's not a traditionally good day to launch a product like that.
No, it isn't. It really isn't.
I mean, it's not a good day to launch any kind of product. I want to talk about this
Sunday's a good day to launch brunch.
Yeah, that's about it. Brunch, mimosas.
Yeah.
Maybe a Bloody Mary, maybe a screwdriver, but not a phone. Not one of the most anticipated phones for a certain platform. I mean, this is the phone that we've been talking about for a long time. I mean, when they announced this Nokia deal, the partnership, everybody thought this is the phone we're getting, right? I mean, we said it would be the N9 type phone that we would get from Nokia. It's a beautiful phone, great phone. I would like to compare launch days like for, I don't know, let's say the iPhone to this, and it's totally different. I mean, there's so much hoopla that goes into an iPhone launch. And
Nokia was never going to get that kind of hoopla.
But they could have tried. I mean, and let's compare other phones in history. The BlackBerry Storm, which got a big day for its release. The Motorola Droid, which got another big thing for its release. I mean, there's been a lot of these phones that have gotten this huge push. I'm just very surprised we didn't see this happen with this phone. I'm actually a little disappointed.
Well, I'm not surprised, actually. I mean, I didn't expect anything big. They had a big event in New York, I think, on Friday. And obviously when Nokia launched the first Windows phone, their first Windows phone, late. That was my phone, by the way.
Was that a Windows phone?
Yeah. Hold on, I just want to see. This is a strange text message that just occurred on my Windows phone with its weird new sound. Thanks for buying your mobile accessories. What?
Who's using the credit
All right.
card?
I don't know.
Who's
Anyway,
using a card? No,
it was an AT&T text message.
yeah, I'm just fascinated by this, and I mean, personally, I think the phone is beautiful. I don't have my hands on it yet. I know you have the phone, which we're going to get into, your overall review of this thing. I should be getting one by next week, hopefully. I should be getting my hands on one. The problem is, and the reason why I haven't bought it is because I'm not an AT&T subscriber. I have Verizon, and God forbid there be a good Windows phone on Verizon, because this ridiculous idea, this ridiculous notion that we have in this country, and I don't know how it is in Europe, but one gets it, but the other one doesn't for 6 months.
Yeah. Well, the animosity between Verizon and Windows Phone will probably continue for some months, but I would imagine by Windows Phone 8 we'll see some more action there.
I'm getting message for dating advice, by the way, from people. This is fabulous. I'm doing a show, and people are asking me what they should do on their first date with somebody.
Wow, they should listen to this podcast.
Dating advice with Paul Thurrott. Paul, where do you take the lady on the first date?
There is nothing I could teach anyone about dating. So,
no, I'm just. I would like to know where the logic was behind it, and they delayed it once. Why not wait at least another day? I mean, if they released this thing on a Monday, or if it could have.
Well, I mean, for all intents and purposes, they did.
They did, yeah. They had to at this point.
Yeah.
So very interesting. So, what do you think of the phone so far?
I think it's fantastic. It's beautiful.
Does it live up to the hype of what it was?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I didn't really read any of the reviews. I've gotten comments about the reviews that appeared last week from people who were upset in some cases about what people had written or whatever. But the truth is, I've been using Windows Phone all along, so I get it. I mean, I wrote a book about Windows Phone. I mean, I understand the system. The phone I had right before this was similarly sized screen and AMOLED type screen, beautiful display. I get it. I mean, it's not going to be too different from that. I mean, I think the differentiators on this device are going to be the form factor itself. It's got this beautiful case, beautiful screen, and then the Nokia software and services. Some of the things that are unique that Nokia provides, and then potentially the camera. And that's something I'm going to look into in the next week or so. But,
have you? So far? What do you think of it? I mean, have you played around with the camera or?
Yeah. Well, so far it looks good. The one thing I haven't done is done a side-by-side test with the iPhone 4S. I suspect that the iPhone 4S is probably still superior. The one thing that this thing does do that I like a lot, and I've not seen this before on a Windows Phone, is it offers the capability to do widescreen pictures.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah. And I prefer that. The digital cameras that I buy, I always make sure that's an option.
By the way, people think I'm crazy when I shoot, when I use my point and shoot, and I shoot everything in widescreen. They think I'm out of my mind that I'm shooting in widescreen. Oh,
not at all. I mean, when you put your photos on an HD TV, they fit. They fit that aspect ratio perfectly. That's what you want.
I mean, my obsessive compulsiveness has reached to the point where I'll yell at people when they take a photo like this, like the long way, and not like the up and down, not the side by side. It drives me crazy when people shoot like that, especially like on a point shoot, like on a regular shot. Like all they do is get you from far away, and you're just standing, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah. I mean, there are times I may shoot that way, but most of the time, it's landscape. So
my wife.
So I like that part of it. I took a couple sample shots this morning. I'm doing an article each day about the Lumia, and that's one that will be coming. The next few days. I don't remember where I slated it, but one of the days I'll be looking at the camera, and not just at this camera, but also how it compares to the iPhone 4S, because for me right now, that's the benchmark, for camera-based phones. There's a review out that just came out today, I think, on Laptop Magazine, where they reviewed the HTC Titan 2, which also came out on Sunday.
Yeah.
sort of. And it's not a great phone. It doesn't look like a great phone, but the one thing that it has is a 16 megapixel camera.
Yeah, but I mean, the megapixels really don't matter, right? I mean, it's the quality of the camera itself.
Yeah. So I'd like to review, and I will try to review that camera and that phone as well, just for the camera bit, really, because I'm curious about that. But obviously the goal is that someday, hopefully this year, if not sometime soon, that you can buy a smartphone and just use it as your camera and not have to bring a special camera with you when you go on vacation. Or
Well, we're slowly getting into that. I mean, I had my cousin's engagement party last week, and I took a point and shoot with me. And
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I actually went somewhere and I was like, oh, I need to take a picture. Let me bring my point and shoot. I took it because it was a special occasion. So you could still, it's still not at that level, right? I mean, you'll take this around if you're going to like a birthday party and you'll use it. But if it's like a real special occasion, you'll still take your camera.
No, you see this thing happening in the iPhone market, which is very interesting, where they have these add-on lenses, and that I could sort of see that. I think that's kind of a neat idea, and kind of a halfway point between just bringing your phone or just bringing another camera. No, but if we go on a trip, we just went to Spain, for example, in February. You bring a camera. I'm not going to take my family. The one time we may go to Barcelona in our entire lives, I'm not going to take pictures on a Windows Phone's camera. It's not going to be.
Well,
any good.
what would you say? We're about 2 years away from a completely dominating the point and shoot market. I mean,
maybe less.
Let's say less for the iPhone, right? Let's say in a year from now, possibly the next iPhone could potentially have that great camera.
Nokia has that PureView technology that they're working on. It's like 43 megapixels, something crazy like that. That's ludicrous. But if they could make something that was halfway between the current Lumias and that device and put it into a phone that wasn't 5 inches thick, they'd be onto something. So I bet they get there.
This is all interesting stuff, but I do want to remind our viewers, if you're watching live, which we record our show every Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern, you could go to our website, gfqlive.tv. You could choose number of our feeds, Ustream, Justin TV, Stickam. We even have an audio feed. We're on Stitcher Radio. But if you're there, you could join our chat room. We have a great chat room right there. We have about 80 people in the room right now at gfqlive.tv. And if you're in the chat room, you could change your nickname, because by default, it kind of sets your nickname to GFQ Viewer and whatever combination of numbers it follows with. You could change it by clicking on menu and change nicknames. So it's kind of easier for us to comment on things that are happening in the room instead of us saying GFQ Viewer 1860 says. So go right ahead and change your name in there. Also, of course, we have our show on podcast form after our show, probably a couple hours afterwards. I'm very interested in this phone, Paul. And, I think it was like a year ago when we got together and I played around with version 7.5, the latest version of at that time. I was very impressed by it, and I hadn't really had a chance to play around with Windows Phone. And I told him, like, wow, this is great. I guess that update was a huge update. And you turn around like, not really. And it was
been like this, yeah. No, right. I mean,
and
it's funny seeing people kind of tune into Windows Phone suddenly, and say, oh my God, this is actually really good. They must have just fixed it.
Yeah.
And it's always been really good. I mean,
what are the reviews saying so far? Have you seen any negatives?
No, I haven't really read them, but I mean, the consensus, I try to stay away from
except for Paul, the it's too inexpensive argument.
Yeah, so I mean, some of the great arguments we've seen, there's like this ongoing debate on one tech blog about whether the platform itself is any good, whereas like the platform is like the best part about Windows Phone. It's like so obviously excellent. The cost, the ever controversial cost, did they underprice it? We spend so much time talking about the expensive things, especially Apple devices, and now people are complaining that it's too inexpensive, which is fun. Well, it wasn't too inexpensive for me. I spent $450 on this.
Well, you get two of them. Oh, you bought it unlocked.
Yeah, I bought it.
Oh, you bought it. Yeah, because I guess you didn't have a plan. Now, you went and got yours on Monday.
Yep.
Was there any line? Did AT&T say anything that people are, excited for it? Are they pushing it?
So there's Nokia Lumia stuff all over the store. All the big displays are all Lumia stuff now. What I found interesting was that, I hate going to AT&T in a way because it's, it's always it's like going to see your tax attorney. Like, you don't know how it's going to turn out. You're not sure everything's going to be okay when you leave, and you sign in on this computer. This is a terrible experience. And then I had to wait because there were 3 or 4 people in front of me. And I went over and I was looking at the Lumia display. And I have to give these guys credit. The employees in the store were really good. And contrary to all the stories you hear about people shushing you away from Windows Phone, the 2 employees I spoke to were both very complimentary to Windows Phone. But a guy actually came up to me and he said, look, he goes, I know you're waiting. If you have any questions while you're waiting, I can answer them. He was just restocking.
Did he know you? Were you like, aren't you Paul Thurrott from WinSupersite.com?
No, and he was great, and he loved Windows Phone. He loved the Lumia. He thought it was beautiful. He said to me that all the complaints that people make about the lack of apps is absolutely wrong, and that apps in fact look much better on Windows Phone, which they do.
Well, this is the first time that quality over quantity is not playing a factor in it, right? Everybody's screaming that there aren't too many apps.
Let me tell you something. Everyone who thinks that quality over quantity is baloney was saying the exact same thing 5 years ago when we were comparing the Mac to the PC. You know, that I actually don't believe that there is a quality over quantity advantage for Windows Phone. That's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is that there are enough of the essential apps that people want and need that this conversation doesn't need to happen. It's fine. Yes, you could find individual apps that you're just absolutely in love with because all you do is download apps all day long on your Android phone.
But how many phones do you use? Look, how many apps do you use? I'm going to go through my apps, right?
I don't use many apps at all. I mean, but you know, part of the reason is a lot of the stuff I want to do with the phone is kind of built in. There's a lot of little integration bits around sharing and everything that are just there. You know, so to me, like a lot of the app stuff is superfluous.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now. I have 70 apps installed.
All right, so on what?
On my Android phone. Now, I have 70 apps because I test a lot of these apps. I don't necessarily use 70 apps. So I have a lot of podcast
going through
apps.
the actual, like, but every day, like, is there some like, are there 3 apps, 5 apps?
I'll tell you right now. I'm just going down my list now.
Without?
Let me go through this. Okay, so on my phone, right?
Yeah.
I use Facebook, Twitter, 2, right?
Yep,
Instagram, 3. I just started Instagramming because I want to understand what all the craziness is about.
So Instagram does not exist on Windows Phone, but as you know, it just arrived on Android, and there are several Instagram clones available on Windows Phone.
Stitcher.
I don't know what that is.
Which is an internet radio app. Dropbox occasionally.
Interesting.
I use my IRC client, but that's a very specific reason.
Yep.
So about maybe 6 to 8 apps I use, and that's not every day that I actually
So by the way,
use.
if you wanted to engage in Facebook chat on on Android, how would you do it?
If I want to do Facebook chat in Android, I either I use the Facebook app or I use the Facebook Messenger app.
All right, so it's an app. See, in Windows Phone, I guess we'd call it an app, but it comes with Windows Phone. It's just built in. It's part of messaging.
I have Reddit. I'll use Reddit if I'm out of the house. I mean, I'm one of those people that I rarely leave the place. Like I'm always here.
The one thing I don't commute, so I don't really need this every day. But if I was going to commute and use this thing every day, I mean, the types of things I would use every day, or I would sort of cycle between every day, would include Kindle, which I have. It's on there. Audible, which I also have.
Okay.
Coming soon publicly. It's in beta right now. News apps, there are lots of RSS readers. There are lots of front ends to Google Reader. I've tried various ones of those. Those are good. But, like major sources of news, AP Mobile is on there. It's on all the other platforms. New York Times app is on there. And if you have a subscription to the Times, any kind, you get the full thing, which I do. USA Today, also free. And then, there's Pandora apps. There's the RSS type stuff
But I mean, look at the apps that I don't use. I don't use my Google TV remote. I have it installed. I rarely use Foursquare. Flickr, I actually use a lot, the Flickr app.
The Flickr app. Yep. There's one, by the way, official Flickr app on Windows Phone.
I use that. I have like 6 podcasting applications just so I could test out to see what's good.
Yeah. Okay. But podcasting built in.
Podcasting is built. Well, no, it's not. It's not.
On Windows Phone.
In Windows Phone, yeah, it is. And then the rest, there's like 15 Google applications that come with it. So yeah. I don't really... And then look at this. I have the Stickam app. I have the Ustream app. I have the Justin TV app. A normal person's really not going to
use that stuff, right? Not regularly because of the data requirements and so forth.
Yeah, when I use it, when I'm in a meeting and someone's like, "Hey, can I see your video?" and I pull it up and I load the Stickam application. I'm like, "Oh, here, this is easy. Look, I'm live right now." Most people don't need that many apps. I think we've become this culture that we want to download everything.
There's like this self-imposed version of lock-in that occurs. Someone will say, "Hey, I really like this app. It's whatever, something stupid."
Well,
does this thing exist on Windows Phone? And then you look at this app, this kind of one-of-a-kind weird app that this person likes, and you're like, well, no. What does the app do? And then they explain it to you, and you're like, okay, well, there are alternatives to that are on Windows Phone. Yeah, but I don't want that. I want this app.
Yeah, but what people do, or this is another thing. This is why a lot of people have like 1,000 apps. They go, you know what? I really like the Paul Thurrott podcast app. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go download every other podcast app to compare the rest. I mean, a lot of people do that. That's why a lot of people have like 200 applications on their phone.
Yeah. Well, Windows Phone, I think are maybe an ideal combination because I just don't care about most of this junk. And most of the apps that I do put on my phone, I never use. And like you, I test things. I download games and stuff, but I don't do a lot of games, most of the games I leave on my phone, and I did when I installed this, I put maybe 3 or 5 games on here. They're mostly for my kids, because we'll be out in a restaurant or something, and the kids get idioty, and we want to hang out and talk for a little while or whatever. It's like, here, here's my phone, go nuts, and they can play a game.
Yeah. I mean, how about the iPad? I mean, let's look at the iPad. People are downloading. Are apps?
Well, by the way,
more
that's
important
the same
on
thing
that?
for me, though.
That's the same thing. You really don't use that many apps on that.
No, not at all. In fact, I use the Kindle app, and I push as many things as I can through Kindle. As far as periodical subscriptions and books, through Kindle.
I mean, I'm guilty of it, Paul. I mean, I download, if I see something new, I download it, I test it, I want to know what's happening. I'm guilty of this. No,
but then I don't use
it. No, and then
I
that's
do the same thing.
And then I hoard it, Paul. I hoard the apps. I let them sit there because I don't want to delete it.
The nice thing is, with iCloud and all that, you can hoard them up in the cloud, so you don't have to hoard them on the device. I'd like to have ideally, I would have one screen on an iPad, one home screen. I don't want screens, I don't like that I can't remove a lot of the apps that Apple puts on there. I put them all in a folder called Apple Apps, and I put it on the second page. I don't like or use most of those apps. I couldn't care less about them. I have the New York Times app on the iPad. I have, I use the videos app. When I do the elliptical every day and I watch part of a TV show or movie. Right now I'm doing that on the iPad because it happens to fit right over the front of the thing. It's kind of a nice fit. And really, there's not much else than that. I mean, I don't use too many apps. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand why.
Yeah. I don't know. I think people like it. I think people are very used to it at this point, and everything is app. So, even things that they could do by going to a website, they would rather not do it.
That's inefficient. I mean, even the news thing I just said, I said AP Mobile, USA Today, New York Times. There are better ways to get news than going through 3 different apps, more efficient ways. I tested a bunch of Google Reader type, RSS type apps. There are many. You find one you like. That's a great way to get news too, in one place. I mean, I don't understand the in-out thing. To me, that's just, it reminds me of, I used to have this saying about people who dual booted on the computers. And it was like the more OSs you put on a single computer, the less work you're getting done. I think this is just a little phase for people. It's like we all,
it's also, I don't know if it's a phase, but I think it's almost like the next step in of selling software, right? I mean, we've become an app style society economy. Yeah, even on the desktop. I mean, the desktop OSs. I mean, we're talking about the Windows. Windows Store is going to have the apps. Everybody's going to be downloading apps from there, and Apple's doing the same thing with their Mac store. So, and this kind of leads into the next discussion. These are the things that slowly killed, places like CompUSA and Computer City we had here in New York. Yeah. A lot of these computer places, these big box retail stores that you would go to buy software, you don't need to do that anymore because, first of all, software, I think, for the most part, if you're looking to buy, I'm not talking about Office or Photoshop.
Actually, even Office.
Even Office and Photoshop.
Photoshop. Yeah. Why not?
But I remember going to CompUSA, Paul, and you would go there, and the circular would be, free, like 1-cent applications, and people would just be buying it. You get a box. The box was worth more than the software was in the disc.
Yeah, it was a box of air.
Yeah, it was a box of air. That's exactly what it was. So we've kind of left that idea of going into the store to buy software.
No, as awful as it is for those stores, right? CompUSA is gone for all intents and purposes. What was that one? Radio Shack had like the Incredible Universe, I think, was a big box store like that, a big box electronics store. We look back on that, or we should, in the same way that we look back on other things that seem quaint in retrospect, that we would get in our car, drive to a place, walk down aisles and look at boxes bring something home that we would then plug into our computer, wait for it to install, and like that was the process. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's the way we did it, but those things don't exist.
I mean, it's evolved at this point. But I guess the next step is with the hardware. I mean, these Best Buy, I think 2 weeks ago, they announced that they're closing, X amount of stores, and now their CEO is out. So things are changing over there too. But where do we go 20 years from now? I mean, when it comes to these retail stores, what's the next step after this? Obviously, they're slowly going to fade.
So this is kind of a slightly complex theory of mine or whatever, or idea, but you can pick your business, right? So Toys R Us is the one giant remaining national toy chain that's on the ropes as well.
Yeah.
Best Buy, Borders is gone, and now we just have Barnes & Noble. These companies not too long ago were the villains. They were the ones who were coming in and getting rid of
mom and
local
pop
chains, smaller chains, buying them up and just killing them outright. Now we're worried that they're going to die because of electronics. So it's kind of a weird turnaround for them. They've turned in, from villain to victim. The other thing though that I think is related to this is, when I was a kid, a mall was a place that was was a thing that would kill local businesses, right? They would put a mall in, and these stores would come, not just like huge stores like the ones we're talking about, but slightly smaller national chains. And then they would put them all in a single building, but it was inside, and it was a building that had multiple businesses inside. Those kind of malls today are quaint as well, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because stores like Sears that used to sell a bunch of stuff in one store were kind of replaced by malls. But then malls have since been replaced by, outdoor malls, which are essentially standalone stores by themselves, but also by things like Walmart, which is kind of like the new Sears. So it's this kind of a weird cycle where these stores go from being the villain. They come in, when a Sears would come in and put all these little local hardware stores out of business and all this, everyone hated them. And then the malls would spring up around the Sears, and then Sears starts to go downhill, and it's like, oh my God, Sears, they don't make the catalog anymore.
And people
This
are
is
upset.
terrible.
Yeah, and people are screaming like you look at something like Home Depot, for example.
Right.
I remember when I was a kid, because my family, I come from a blue collar background. A lot of them were, they had a mom and pop hardware shops, and they were contractors. And I remember as a kid, when more of these Home Depots started opening up, I remember the discussion that I can't believe they're doing this. They're killing the business. The lumber yards are gone. Their lumber yards are gone. Nobody's talking about the lumber yards anymore. But everybody just evolved and went there.
Same thing, right? I mean, it's the same process.
Yeah, same exact thing.
When we moved to Dedham in the very early 1970s, there was a local clothing chain, a local clothing store. There was one store. It was called Guy Shekker's. I knew the son of the owner, and you went there for two reasons. They sold Boy Scout and Weebelo uniforms and all that stuff, and they sold jeans, and they probably sold other stuff, but that's why we used to go. And of course, the notion of like a clothing store that's not some amazingly huge national chain is ludicrous today. But that's one of the other. This story is repeated everywhere. So
I have a retail background. I mean, I had a party supply business before I got into. I mean, and that's such a leap. Went into like internet broadcasting from having a party store. But I had a party supply store, like a Party City. That's what they have here in New York, which is a big one. I opened up in a small town on Long Island, which didn't really have they had actually a Party City, which was a giant, 20,000 square foot business. Went out of business. I opened up a small place, about 4,000 square feet, and I did extremely well. Yep. I ended up having to sell because a Dollar Tree was opening up literally across the street from me. That was 40,000 square feet.
Right.
And you know what? And a lot of people scream about, oh man, the small business, but everybody went there.
Yeah.
Luckily, I sold, 2 months before they opened up, but everybody went there, and we are responsible for this.
I think there's going to be a resurgence in small businesses. In fact, I think it's already happening in the same way that there's a resurgence in, or not a resurgence, a surgence, if you will, in locally grown foods and all this kind of stuff. I think these things are all playing into the same thing. So Best Buy, I think, is going to make it. I think they're going to be a smaller thing that they are now. One of the things that they're talking about doing is putting these smaller stores in. I don't know if you remember this. There used to be chains called Service Merchandise, which was, I believe, I don't know if they were regional or national, but kind of I don't want to call it a cheapskate, but like kind of a cheap take on the Sears model. But then there was an even cheaper, weirder version called Consumers. And I don't know if you had this where you live,
No.
but Consumers was like, it was like service merchandise, but with no store that you could walk around in. You would walk in to the front of the place, and you would flip through a catalog, like a Sears catalog. And then you would fill out a form, and you would hand it to a guy at the register, and then it would come out from the back. So the whole store, 90% of it was just basically a warehouse.
Yeah.
And you would walk into the front of it, kind of.
And you tell them what you want.
Yeah, and I could see Best Buy doing something like that because, for all of the stuff that they're losing, obviously the music industry with CDs are going downhill. The DVD industry is on the way down. But there are still things you need to buy that it helps to see them before you buy them. Computers, laundry equipment, dishwashers, stuff like that. Big ticket items.
You know
TVs.
what it is, Paul? People are still going online for these things. I'll tell you one thing. I redid my kitchen, and I bought all new appliances. I ordered it online. I didn't even see the thing. I got it online.
My wife and I spent a bunch of time. This was months ago now, probably right after Christmas. We went down to one of the classic big malls that are still in the area, the South Shore Plaza, and we looked at dinnerware, if you will, like plates, essentially, because our plates are all chipped and cracked because we have kids. And we compared them at 3 different stores in the mall. Just white plain plates.
Yeah.
That's something. I don't know. We could have bought something online. I mean, what do you do? Buy one and see if it's any good, and then if it's not, I mean, I know some people will. Some people will buy a 50-inch TV at Amazon and have it delivered, I guess. But I like to go into a store, even though it's not ideal lighting-wise and everything, and do some kind of a rough comparison between the quality of the picture and the contrast and whatever. And I think that those types of businesses will always have a place. And that Best Buy will have a place. I think Toys R Us has a place as a retail business that will continue forward. Sears possibly, Walmart certainly.
Yeah.
The Costco's and the other big box stores.
But where is this going? I mean, everybody's shopping on Amazon, right? Amazon is the king of online merchandise.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well,
let's predict
are they
something.
though? I mean, are they? I mean,
Well,
obviously a lot of people are, but
I can't tell you the last time. And I'll tell you one thing. That one-click thing really, really attracts the impulse buyer. And I'm buying so much merchandise now because of the one-click shopping.
Oh, it's ingenious. In fact, it's insidious is the right word. But yes. Yeah. Yep. No, we do things like we had one of our credit cards had some kind of a promo where if you any purchases at Amazon for the month of whatever, February, you got some kind of cash back thing, So we funnel like every purchase through Amazon through this card, and we probably made like $18 or something at the end of it. But it's funny how those things can drive you to change your behavior a little bit.
So let's go. Let's play a guessing game, and I want to play this with the audience too. Actually, I want to play this game where we predict where we could be in 10 to 20 years because the evolution of
retail perspective.
From a retail perspective, especially for technology. Let's go with technology.
Just like electronics.
Electronics.
Actually,
Software,
let me throw out an idea I have that it's going to sound ludicrous on the face of it, but I bet it happens. I bet that Amazon has retail stores.
Okay.
Right.
So let's do this. Let's talk about our sponsor, and then we'll come to that because I kind of have the same idea.
Okay.
I kind of have the same idea with that. But before we go into that, I do want to talk about our sponsor, and that's hover.com, domain names made simple. In my opinion, and in the opinion of many, simply the best domain registrar. And I'm going to tell you why they are the best. When you are buying a website, let's say you go to one of those other guys. I don't want to name names. And it says, $9.99 for the domain name, or it says, $11.99 for .com.net. And you're saying, wow, that's a pretty good deal. You go to buy the domain name, and all of a sudden it says, well, would you like private registration? And you say, of course, because I don't want my address out there. So you add another $8 to private registration. Now you're up to almost $20. And then it says, would you like to certify your domain name? And you certify the domain name, and that's another $6. By the time you're done and you check out, you're at almost $30. This is how they get you, these guys. It's almost like they're telling you, hey, listen, look at this great deal. But wait a minute, no. Just the base model. You're buying a car, but it has no tires, so you got to buy the tires. With Hover, everything is included in the price. Private registration is there. You get everything all in that one price. And if you go to gfq.hover.com, you get 10% off your entire purchase, which is a pretty good deal. They do email support. So if you want to get an at, let's say, I have my at GFQ Network email. So it's Andrew at gfqnetwork.com. And rather than giving a Gmail address to many people, I just give that if it's a work thing. So I could kind of separate the two, and it looks a lot more professional than just having like a Gmail. What's worse, Paul? Gmail, Hotmail, or AOL?
It's not Gmail, I can tell you
It's
that.
not Gmail. So probably AOL, right?
AOL is probably worse,
Yeah.
but it was a photo finish.
You know what's weird, and I'll tell you something, and this kind of goes into this. Whenever like I'm doing like a business thing and I get an email address and I see it's like michaelwright@aol.com, I cringe a little. I'm like, I don't know if this guy's on the up and up.
Yeah.
If it was like Michael Wright at, whatever company.com, I think I'd be more likely to do business with him. So, it just says something about where our mind goes. gfq.hover.com, you get 10% off, or you could use promo code WTT upon checkout and you get 10% off as well. Thank you, Hover, for supporting What the Tech. And back to the program. Back to you, Paul Thurrott.
All right.
Paul Thurrott with the news. Okay, so let's do this. 20. Let's do 20 years. You want to do 20 or 10?
20. I can't think.
That's
20
okay. So let's go 10 years.
You have to remember what things were like
10 years ago.
that time in the past, right?
So
I mean,
2002.
20 years ago, which was we moved to Phoenix about 19 years ago, and that was the first time I saw Best Buy. So Best Buy was a West Coast chain that was heading east and had not come to Boston yet. We still had Leachman's probably just went out of business by then, or maybe soon thereafter. Leachman's being a local kind of electronics chain. I saw things like Incredible Universe, which I'd never heard of, and of course those things kind of came and went. And then lots of clothing chains, Montgomery Ward, things like that I'd never heard of, that we never got back east. So, I mean, the first thing that happens is, I think the first trend that we can sort of extrapolate to the future, if you will, is this, what I would call globalization. So you have these West Coast chains that came to East, and probably East Coast chains that went West. Dunkin' Donuts went out West eventually and all that kind of stuff. So, and what's next? I mean, I think next is the global businesses, right?
Sure.
One of the...
Which,
funny.
by the way, they've tried. Like Radio Shack, they went to the UK, and you know what their stores were? They were Tandy. They called the stores Tandy, and they failed. I think there's like a couple left, but it did awful for many years.
I'm not actually hugely interested about U.S. companies going to other places. I'm more interested in like stuff I can get now from Europe or Asia or whatever. I mean, there are probably chains that we've never heard of, stores, retail, whatever, restaurants, that would be awesome to have around here. I mean, there have been so many amazing changes with that kind of thing. You couldn't find sushi in the Boston area until fairly recently. Now it's everywhere because you can find sushi in probably Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, one of the big reasons one would travel 5, 10, 25 years ago, whatever, would be for the food experience. But now a lot of the kind of exotic foods are just readily available no matter where you are. And I don't see why that can't happen with products and services too, and maybe that's a first step for that 10 years down the road kind of thing.
I'm trying to think. Let's go 20 years, right? So we're talking 1992. I was still a kid, obviously. Unless, obviously.
Still are a kid,
I still am, I know. I'm coming close to 30. I still think I'm like 17. My wife and I, we were having dinner with somebody, and we were discussing, like age. One of my friends just turned 29. And my wife turned around. She goes, I just had this discussion with somebody. Because my wife is a couple of years younger. She's 25. And she goes, I just had this discussion with somebody, and they were like, how old are you? And I just said 21, like out of nowhere. And I looked, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just lied to you. I feel like I'm 17 still. And I think I still look 17.
That helps.
Yeah.
I think all men feel like they're 17.
It's called delirium.
Yeah, it's you can tell you're old when you like twist your ankle going up the stairs, or you get up off the couch and something breaks in your back or whatever. Like that. Those kind of things kind of creep up on you. But yeah.
So let's go to 1992.
Yes.
I had my first computer in 1989. I was 1988. I was 5 years old. So I had 1989. I was 5. I had my first computer was a Tandy 2500 XL. And the best thing my parents ever did, they put it in my room and they said, do whatever the hell you want on this, learn it.
Wow.
And I was learning, command line and all that stuff at like 5 years old. I was going on Prodigy at 5.
Yep, I was on Prodigy.
This is before the whole don't let your kids go on the internet.
Yeah, well, sure.
So
you had to pay to be on Prodigy. I mean, this is not something that people would normally. I remember. By the way, Prodigy was a joint business of, if I'm not mistaken, IBM, Sears, and I want to say General Electric, or was that GE?
I'm not too sure who it was.
Anyway, Sears and IBM were definitely in business on Prodigy.
You know what was one of the first things I ever searched on there? And this just tells you I'm a boy, right? Like a kid. I remember I was in the car. My mother was listening to Howard Stern, and Howard was talking about a chat in Prodigy. They had a Prodigy chat.
Okay.
And I went on Prodigy, and I was looking up Howard Stern. It was one of the first things I did.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, no, I didn't go in the chat. That would have been I would have fit in really well in there, actually, at 5. But I remember going to CompUSA every weekend and getting software. And let's go 10 years later, right? 10 years later, I remember going and buying my first plasma TV in, let's say 2002.
Yeah.
I bought my first plasma for $7,000 from Circuit City.
My friend and I made a joke PowerPoint presentation about why Paul needed a DVD player that I presented to my wife.
What year was this?
Let's see. We were in Phoenix, so it would have been mid-90s. I don't remember exactly, but I just remembered my friend and I working on this, and my wife just laughing, and I think she said something to the effect of, the effort I put into this clearly meant that I really wanted it.
Yeah.
And she didn't even have to see it to.
That's hysterical.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of changed. The mentality has changed, but I think it's changed over the last 10 years more than anything else, because we were still going to these stores to buy stuff. 10 years ago, people were still a little weird about buying their stuff on Amazon.com, putting their credit card information on these online companies.
Yeah, I mean,
they were still there. It was still there.
I recall a conversation I had with my dad. We were in a restaurant. This is many years ago. Many years ago. I don't remember what year it was, but he waited for me to come down to Pennsylvania to visit him, and then I stepped through with him a Dell online ordering thing, and where we configured the PC exactly how he wanted it and all this good stuff, and then whatever the price was at the end, right?
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so now you just got to put in your credit card information. He goes, whoa. Put in my credit card information. He goes, I don't want to do that. Why don't I just call him up? Still, let me ask you a question. When you go to a restaurant and you pay with a credit card, do they take that credit card away from you and then walk somewhere in a back room somewhere and you don't know what they do with it and you've never questioned this once in your life? And he's like, yeah. I said, who do you think's more apt to rip you off? Dell, the multinational, multi-billion-dollar computer corporation, or the guy who just started working at the restaurant who you don't even know? I mean, think about it. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's a good point. And I think there's a certain trust level, that you have to get over. And I think that has just naturally happened,
By the way, sorry to interrupt you, but Matt Groening has finally announced the location of Springfield.
No.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes. Springfield was named after Springfield, Oregon.
Wow.
Yep. The only reason it's that because when I was a kid, the TV show Father Knows Best took place in a town called Springfield.
He announced this.
Yes, he did an interview. So now we know it's in Oregon.
I don't know that it. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, the real Springfield's in Oregon.
Yeah, I guess that's where he went based on. I know I had to interrupt you because I'm a huge.
No, I think I've always been fascinated by the way they avoid explaining where it is and the many weird places it could have been based on. Yeah. They've done kind of a neat job with that. So that's funny.
In 10 to 20 years, I would imagine, and I think your concept is right. I think Amazon.com. I think that what's going to be the most important factor in this is getting it instantly. And Amazon is kind of going towards that with the Prime stuff, with the next 2-day delivery and the next day. I mean, there are times that you could order something on Amazon and have that afternoon.
Oh, my God. I don't know. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the reason that works isn't because they have some awesome deal with, UPS or whatever. It's because they've been building regional warehouses. And sometimes multiple, And it's kind of the way Netflix might work on a much smaller scale when you think about it. When I send my Netflix red envelope back in the mail, it doesn't go to Illinois, it goes to some place in Massachusetts,
Sure.
and then they register that I've sent it back, and the next one comes. Amazon is building and they've expanded dramatically in the past couple of years, which I think is what makes this retail store idea so plausible, because they can do this thing where for that final hump, for those big ticket purchases where you really just want to see it, because there's always going to be a segment of people, especially with TVs, but also with the washers and dryers and all this stuff, refrigerators, whatever it is, you're going to want to see it, And Amazon's business may primarily be online forever, I guess. I mean, and maybe people are laughing and saying, of course, they'll only be online, but there will always be a need for a local place where people can buy things, whatever those things are.
I mean, or the other thing is to piggyback off of, and I know they do this with some stores. You could piggyback off of local stores, and you become an Amazon affiliate, and they sell your stuff for you.
Yeah.
So therefore, you could get
like
that day delivery. I mean, it would be possible.
In a small town, you could have a post office that's inside of a grocery store or whatever.
I think that's going to be the factor with online stores. The advantage will always be the impulse buy, to go into a store and buy it that second. That's why we see so many sales for plasma and flat screen TVs during the Super Bowl, right? I mean, that's an impulse buy. So Super Bowl, I'm going to go buy a big screen TV. I'm going to buy it a couple days before. That's why it's always been like that. But if they could get,
I bet those guys aren't buying them online.
They're not buying them online.
You want to go to the store, see it, and walk out with it.
But here's the thing. I think if I know I could get that TV that day, if I go online and I order, and I could get, I go in the morning, I go online and I get it, maybe 5 p.m. in the afternoon.
I know what you're saying,
I'll buy
but it's just, I didn't do this from Amazon because it wasn't possible. But when the new iPad came out, I did order it online, and it arrived that day, but later in the day. And I kind of make fun of the people that stand in line. But the reality is, when you're buying something that's really expensive and desirable, it's kind of neat to have it in your hand, And I think part of the appeal of doing that is, you're going to get it, Well,
why do you think people wait online? There's this kind of mental
math that occurs.
Why do you think people wait online for the iPhone?
Yeah, but, waiting online, remember when the iPad actually, same thing. So they announced the new iPad on sale today, deliver next week, whatever the deal was at the time. A lot of people, probably millions of people, were trying to hit Apple's website and couldn't get through. Getting through and getting it ordered properly, which took a long, long time for a lot of people. And then you finally get it. You put in your credit card information. You just spent $800 or whatever. And now you don't have it.
Yeah.
That's kind of it's not a great experience, top to bottom. It's just not. What you'd rather do is go to the place, wait in line if you have to. That's what happens with the Apple stuff. And see the boxes on the table and have the guy hand you the one you want. That's a way better experience. I mean,
but what's interesting in this online world where everybody's buying stuff online, look at the Apple Store. It's doing great. And it's a very niche market.
What is?
The Apple Store. Like the actual Apple Store.
Is it? I mean,
they're doing good.
It's almost the biggest company on earth. I mean, I know what you're saying, but
the actual store itself, when you could buy all of that, and top it all, if you could buy all these Apple products everywhere else, it's not like you got to get it at the Apple Store, get it at Apple, and they're doing phenomenal.
I don't know. I mean, it's funny the way they do things. If you want a MacBook, whatever, that's configured exactly the way you want it, by and large, you got to buy it online, right? I mean, there are certain configurations that's the only place you can do it. If you want to get an iPad and you want to make sure you get it, you kind of want to go to the store. And in the case of the iPad, the new iPad, when it first came out, that was the only place you could get it that day, right? Was Apple, wasn't it? I think right away.
Where, the store?
I believe so.
The day of, because they were delaying it. I guess it was like the day of, you get it. Like this iPad 2, I pre-ordered it. Mm-hmm. And I ordered it to get it the day of, and it never came. It came like a day or two after.
Yeah, that's not good.
And that's obviously strategic because they want to cause that mass hysteria and have the news vans in front of the Apple Store, and they're doing the coverage.
Right.
That's great because then the news is promoting that device. It's the greatest PR move. They're taking commercial time out, and they're not even taking a commercial.
Sure.
And that's the only reason really why they do it. And people are like, well, they don't have enough. And Microsoft did it too with the Xbox, and Sony does it too with the PlayStation 3. They kind of pull back on the distribution.
Once a year, my son and I get up at midnight and go to Best Buy, actually, and we buy the next Call of Duty game.
Yeah.
stand in line with a bunch of guys that look actually just like us. And I know it's shocking. And, there's a little bit of the line camaraderie stuff, which I totally get. And you buy the game and you go home and you play it for a little while and you go to bed. It's kind of, I could wait for it to come. I could have pre-ordered it on Amazon and it would have arrived at whatever time deliveries occur in my neighborhood, which unfortunately for me is late in the day.
See, this is one thing that I predict, Paul. I think they're going to start implementing social networking sites into purchasing these things. I think Facebook will be a huge, huge place to buy product.
Sure.
And that will target. I mean, can you imagine if, there's let's say it's an iPad ad that pops up there and it says click to buy. You just click the button and that's it. It's done. Nothing else.
Yeah, well, because that's where people are now. That makes plenty of sense.
That's where people are. Yep. I think they're going to start implementing it into things like this. And you could decide, if you follow Apple, Apple's going to say, you follow the Apple feed, and every day or two, whenever or whatever, they're just going to put out a click to buy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised they haven't done that already. I'm really surprised that hasn't been implemented. Obviously, that's the next step for something like this.
Yeah.
Same thing with Twitter.
Yep.
I mean,
Twitter. We were just talking about Twitter spam. I mean, you can kind of see where that one's going.
Well, God forbid you type in I was going to say Viagra or iPad or anything to do with any kind of medication. I typed in Infinity because my wife's lease is finishing soon. So I wrote considering the 2013 Infinity because of the interior. I got spammed, and it wasn't like an automated spam. I got spammed by Infinity dealers in the tri-state area telling me to come in and they'll give me a good deal. Like 4 or 5 of them back to back. I mean, it was almost like it was instant. So that's where that's headed. But something like Facebook, if they could integrate purchasing in the applications, I think that would be great.
The other thing, with regards to big retail stores and whether Amazon might, make their own stuff. Obviously, it's expensive and high maintenance to have a retail store with employees and all the kind of baloney that goes on with that. I mean, one of the other opportunities for all of these online companies would be to partner with existing retailers, and maybe that becomes a business model. For as Best Buy sees its business decline over the years, maybe partnering with them makes sense. I used to think that for Borders, that Borders should have become the retail front end for Amazon Books.
Yeah. It's very interesting. We were talking about Facebook, and actually, before we wrap up, I should talk about our other sponsor, which I'm always leaving to the last minute. I got to get really good with this. I used to have an alarm to tell me when I had sponsors, but since we added the second one, my timing has been off. And of course, it's Audible.com. How could I forget about Audible? Paul's favorite one, actually. Paul loves Audible.
Yeah.
My wife loves Audible too. When I got Audible, she's like, "Well, why are you going to get Audible? I'm not really into audiobooks. I'd rather read it." And she tried it out. Jess, what was the first book you got? The audiobook? The Tori Spelling book. It sounds ridiculous, but she said she said it was brilliant on the beach because she just put it. She put her headphones on and she listened to the thing. She said it was a great book, but she's a huge fan of Audible. And I got her hooked on it, and she's like, "Wow, I never thought it was this good." I mean, depending on
the right Audible book makes all the difference.
Yeah, I mean, listen, of course, just like anything else, there's some books out there. The narrator's not really into it, but there's some amazing books out there, and it makes it so much easier if you have a long commute. If you're like me, when I'm on the train, I'm either listening to a podcast or I'm listening to an audiobook. The entire Steve Jobs book I listened to on audio form, and it was great. I mean, it was a great book to listen to. Over 100,000 audiobooks to choose from. Works on Android, iPhone, the iPad, and 500 plus MP3 players, and coming soon, Windows Phone. And what we do with the audiobooks is we do a audiobook pick of the week, an Audible pick of the week. Paul, you will go first. What is your Audible pick of the week?
So it's called Drop Dead Healthy, One Man's Humble Quest for Bodily Perfection. Basically written by a middle-aged guy who realized he was getting a little, round in the middle. And rather than just try to lose weight like so many of us do, he decided he was going to totally turn himself around physically. He took 2 years to do it and then wrote about all the stuff that he did. But, for anyone who's tried to lose weight, and I'm certainly in that group, what you discover when you research this stuff is that there's a lot of contradictory information, all from experts. Nobody agrees, the right way to do anything. And this is kind of a fascinating book about his what he kind of submitted himself to over 2 years in an effort to really turn himself around.
Here's
It's a great story.
I got a little sample here. Let me just play the sample.
Oh, it's read by the author.
Clear, yellow, blue, pink. If you saw a doctor speaking in hushed tones while stealing glances at you, if you couldn't breathe without wincing, if your mind was fogged in by viruses, you might think what I did. The only way I'm getting out of here is on a stretcher covered by a sheet.
Very cool.
My dread was more...
What you did, I forgot, what diet did you do?
Well, so I didn't really, it's not that I did a diet. I did last year, for most of the year, I was on a really kind of severe low carb thing.
All I remember is that you ate a ton of steak.
Yeah. I ate nothing but eggs and bacon for breakfast for about 15 months in a row, but I lost about 26 pounds. I gained a little back. This year I'm trying, it's still at its core kind of a low carb thing, but I think one of the problems with low carb is you don't get enough nutritional variety. And as it turns out, I mean, to lose weight, I look at low carb as more of like a maintenance thing. One of the things that really amazed me was that a lot of people can lose 10% of their body weight or whatever they do, and then they kind of plateau. And with low carb, I was able to maintain my weight within a pound for like months. I mean, it was not what I wanted, but it was kind of amazing to see. So now it's trying more of a traditional watch what you eat kind of thing, exercise a lot. I do cardio every single day. And
I did the Zone diet. They were an advertiser. We had Zone Delivery as an advertiser, and I know I'm talking about another company during an ad, but this is what I do. Mm-hmm. I just talk about everything. And I lost about 30 pounds, and they were sending me food every day. I mean, of course, the portions were big, but I lost 30 pounds. I went from 190 to 160 in like 3 months. And it was great. But, books like that, you listen to the story of a guy, and, I have so many stories, and I've told on the air, too, about eating and my overeating. So it's something that a lot of people could relate to kind of battle this thing that a lot of people have. My pick is it's actually very interesting, and I was looking on Audible because I always look for a new book, and my wife was saying, I want to get a new book for us this month, and I found it on the main page, and it's called "What Everybody Is Saying: An Ex-FBI Agent's Guide to Speed Reading People," and this comes in so you don't notice how often people do things that you would think that are just they're scratching their face or they're holding their hands like this, but it means something. And I'm in a lot of these meetings. Before I went on today, I was talking about it. We had a meeting with a network executives, because they kind of they're interested in one of our shows here at the GFQ network. And a couple of the things they were doing, looking to the left, looking to the right, they mean things. Like one of the things that I noticed is if somebody does this, that means they're very confident in what they're saying. And they believe it. They really believe what they're saying. So a lot of the people that do this, they're very confident.
That was a classic Bill Gates move.
Classic Bill Gates move, yeah. So in this, audiobook, they discuss, what certain movements and things mean.
Whenever I'm teaching people about body language, this question is invariably asked. Joe, what got you interested in studying nonverbal behavior in the first place? It wasn't something I had planned to do, nor was it the result of some long-term fascination with the topic. It was much more down-to-earth than that. It was an interest born of necessity, the need to adapt successfully to a totally new way of life.
So you get the point with that. If you go to audibletrial.com/GFQ, you get a 1-month trial for free at Audible. Which is great. You could test out a book, pick out a book that you like. The regular price is like $20 for some of these, but it's free for you because you are signing up to Audible and you're testing it out. audibletrial.com/GFQ. Get your free audiobook at audible.com. Before we wrap it up, I do want to talk about one more thing.
Actually, are you going to mention the Apple thing?
Apple thing?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I have Apple?
Yep.
Yes.
No, so I was going to say we should hold off to next week, because what I'll do is I will pull out the part of the interview I referenced, and I'll explain my comment further. So maybe that'll give me some time to actually
because
do that.
Next week maybe we should do a thing on home theater, what television has become and what how it's going to go. But I do want to talk about Facebook buying Instagram, which we just spoke about last week, and we were discussing, you kind of didn't get it. and I was just starting to play around with it, and I got a lot of heat on Facebook over this, and people were saying, what do you mean you don't get Instagram? And then some people were agreeing with me, saying that you're taking crappy photos with your Android phone and you're adding even crappier filters to it to make it even look worse, or to hide how bad your pictures were. And I was playing around with Instagram, and I gave it a fair shot the entire week. I like it at times. I think it's easy. I think it's a trendy thing. But for $1 billion, is this company worth $1 billion? No, it's definitely not. Facebook just purchased them for $1 billion. They have $1 billion. They have 10 employees, and they've been in business for 550 days, something like that.
Yep.
The New York Times has been in business for over 100 years, and they're not $1 billion company.
No.
What does that say about the way that these companies are purchasing, technology and these applications? What is Facebook going to do with Instagram? Why are they doing it? Are they doing it to kind of, for their customer base? Are they doing it to kind of build it in together? What does this mean for Instagram? I'm just curious what you think of this.
I mean, based on what they've said, the Instagram is nothing. I just want to be really clear about that. I mean, Instagram is such an obvious idea that it's been readily copied by dozens of other apps, and it's very easily copied. I don't understand what the big deal is about it. I've never gotten the big deal behind Instagram, but okay. It's basically just a mobile app that applies filters to a photograph. So, okay. I think that strategically for Facebook is about to become the #1 place online where people share photos. I don't know what #1 is. Flickr, maybe. But very clearly that's where people are actually sharing photos.
Yeah.
So I think they have needs around that stuff. They've kind of rejiggered the way they display photos in the past year, at least twice. And I think they want to have some kind of a full solution there. But I mean, the thing that's odd about it is that both companies said that the plan is to continue offering this thing as an app, meaning it will be something that can share the filtered photos on other services, Tumblr or Twitter or whatever. And that doesn't make it. So you spend $1 billion in this thing, and then you're going to let people who use it still share those photos somewhere else.
Well,
that's genius.
Why wouldn't they just and I know everybody's doing this. Flickr does it with their app, and the Flickr application I like a lot because it does all those filters and some more. I mean, it's a pretty cool application, and it actually builds on top of your Flickr, which I have a pretty good following on Flickr. Some of the pictures we've taken, I took a picture of the studio and I put it on Flickr. It has 20,000 views.
Yeah.
It's a picture of the studio. So there is a tapped-in audience on Flickr. I'm just surprised.
Well, yeah, and plus, by the way, so Flickr is also more of a public sharing kind of a place. That makes sense for someone like you, right? I think most people, though, take a picture of the beach or a family event or whatever. You're not trying to broadcast it to the whole planet. You're trying to broadcast it to the people you actually know. And in that vein, Facebook makes plenty of sense.
But why wouldn't Facebook just implement the style, on their own? I mean, why couldn't they just implement this photography style in their application where you could take it and put filters and have a photo stream like that?
Yeah, you don't have to buy the Microsoft Word business in order to get italic fonts.
Sure.
Like it's like these things are just out there. I mean, I actually think that the notion, like making a photo look like an old Polaroid, and not just an old Polaroid, but an old Polaroid that has been sitting out in the sun for some number of days, is a fad. This is not a desirable effect. We all remember it, or actually most of the people using Instagram probably don't remember it, sadly. But you get the fact that it's kind of old-fashioned looking, I guess, is the
Listen,
deal.
I get it. I get what it is, but I do think it's a trend. I do think it's a fad, and I think it'll eventually go away when people get really good cameras on their phones.
I think this is going to be the weirdest blip in Facebook's history. It's going to be the one time where they spent like a bucket load of money on nothing. And I just don't understand. Unless Instagram's got some weird thing going on behind the scenes we don't know about. Yeah. Because what I've seen so far, this is...
I mean, 5 million downloads in a couple days for Instagram. I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, 5 million downloads for an application, but...
Great, but it's still, it's like, come on. It's a mobile app, whatever. Yeah. I don't know. There's no in-app purchasing occurring here. Well, maybe there is. Do they have in-app filter purchasing? They should.
No. I know a lot of these other guys do it, but they don't do that.
Yeah, so their business model... Well, actually, why am I complaining about their business model? They just made $1 billion. But was that their business model to sell some huge company that overvalued them?
I took a very nice picture of my Corona bottle over the weekend. I was very proud of it, actually.
Did you give it the sepia look?
No, there's a sunlight feature. So you hit it, and it brightens everything. It looks like the sun is beaming on it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can pull it up here, actually. Because I thought it was a pretty good picture that I took. And I have no way of finding my picture on Instagram. This is phenomenal. How do you even get to your name on Instagram?
No idea.
No clue. On Facebook.
Because Instagram is like this, you mean on the web, right? Like,
You know, I'm thinking, like, because I'm getting older, like, I think I'm getting dumber when it comes to technology. Like, I feel like I don't understand certain things anymore. And it's not that. It's just they're making things a little too complicated. Like, I can't find my Instagram page. Like, I want to see the picture I took.
oh no.
Excellent. But I don't know. You think it's a fad? Do you think it's
I do. Yep.
where is this headed? I mean, what are they going to do with this? $1 billion is a lot of money. I mean, yeah, they make a ton of money, but
I don't know.
How do you make it
Microsoft's
worth it?
purchase of Skype made a lot more sense than this, and we questioned that. You know, Microsoft this week purchased $1 billion.
by the way, here's the
patents. There you go.
photo. There
Beautiful.
you go. Very nice, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Very artsy from the top down.
Yeah.
Yeah, Microsoft bought $1 billion worth of patents from AOL.
From AOL. A lot of people have referred to this as Microsoft buying Netscape after the fact, you know.
Well, they did.
Because
That's
a lot
part
of the patents were related to that kind of stuff. Okay, whatever. But we know what's going on in the mobile space and now in the web space as well with these patents and how this is a weapon that companies are wielding against other companies. That purchase, yeah, that makes some sense. They overpaid for it. I mean, apparently those patents were worth 290, 300 million. But what if they fell into the hands of Google or into the hands of some other competitor? They needed to get it. They overpaid. They paid $1 billion.
I mean, it's obvious.
That purchase makes more sense.
Well, they're doing it to protect themselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like it's like the Cold War.
What's the benefit to Facebook? People are using Instagram for free and then sharing that stuff on Facebook. So I don't understand what they're buying.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I've always said that there is a giant tech bubble, and you know, people spoke about the .com burst, but if this bursts, it's going to be even more devastating because there's so much bizarreness happening with, you know, investments into companies. There are companies out there, and one of the companies that we use all the time, right, for our video distribution, they really don't have a strong model for business. I mean, they put B-roll ads, but it's really the infrastructure is just crazy to support.
Yep.
They are losing money, but they're getting millions and millions of dollars worth of investment into the company. But they really haven't shown any kind of, you know, growth as far as a company
Who invests in this? Who are these investors?
I don't know. I guess they're venture capital groups that are dumping in, you know, $20 million into this and $20 million into that. But what's going to happen?
What's the theory here? Like YouTube is big.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like, look how big YouTube is. And what they try to do, they try to go after more of like web series type people rather than just like the blogger. And they have a pay model and you can pay $100, but I mean, not everybody's doing that. And obviously they're not at the YouTube level. But what happens when the investment, you know, these companies realize, hey, wait a minute, we're not seeing a return. They pull out, these companies crumble.
Sure.
And in a couple of years, that's going to start happening. They're going to realize, well, we've been pumping money into this for 10 years already.
I think these small companies like Instagram that are making an app that they were giving away. I mean, I don't know exactly. I'm sure the money that came into that company was also investment. You know, that's sustainable, right? I mean, it's not, you know, we're not talking about a big company, a handful of employees, you know, yada, yada, yada.
I mean, look at a company like Vimeo, for example, okay? Great video platform. They have a very nice platform there. How are they making money exactly?
Who?
Like Vimeo, which is like a video platform. Like, I'm just curious on how, you know, the infrastructure alone is
web
so
ads.
much.
I have no idea.
I don't know, you know, and it's
know.
scary
No,
because it's this false security in a way. Like when you get handed $50 million, you kind of feel safe.
Yep.
But that'll one day stop. One day you're going to have to make money.
Right. It's your burn money, and then you hope at the other end of this something like what happened to Instagram happens. The problem is it doesn't happen to a lot of people. You know,
your parents are going to kick you out of the house one day. You can't live there till you're 50.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Or maybe you can. I mean, I would like to do that.
No, but I mean, I think for every Rovio that makes a lot of money, and those guys sold paid apps. I mean, not free apps. There are thousands and thousands of companies, little companies who make little apps, little games that are good or bad or whatever. But striking it rich is very rare.
Sure.
I mean, we always highlight these companies because it's an amazing story, but it's still very rare. It's just very rare.
Very interesting, though. That was the last topic of the day because we got to get out of here. I had a dinner thing, and Jess just left. I think she just went to dinner without me.
Yeah, I would have.
Like, she just left. She left like 20 minutes ago. So maybe that was a sign that I'm not going to dinner tonight. But for more Paul Thurrott, for all things Paul Thurrott, you go to his website, winsupersite.com. Paul is doing the 8 days of Nokia right now. 8 days of Nokia Lumia 900. So every day you're discussing a certain topic. Today you discuss initial setup and config.
You know what? No one has asked me.
What?
Why 8 days?
Why 8 days?
I can't believe no one has asked me.
Yeah,
that
why
question.
8 days?
It's actually kind of random. Like I kind of made a list of what I wanted to cover, and there were 8 things. And I thought, this is kind of unfortunate because I'm doing this 8 days a week series for Windows 8, and it sounds like a Windows 8 kind of a thing, but I sort of thought about calling it 7.5 days, because it's Windows 8. Anyway, I don't know. I just, the way it turned out, but I can't believe no one ever asked me why 8.
Yeah, I'm curious.
That's why.
It was random? Totally random.
Yep.
So what are you going to be doing tomorrow, Paul?
Tomorrow, it's going to be a look at the hardware, especially the form factor, but also I want to get into some of the stuff. People are like, oh, it's a single core that stinks, and why that is an issue. I want to talk about the camera a little bit. It has a certain memory allotment. It's non-expandable. There are some downsides to it too. But I mean, my basic contention with this device is going to be that, from just a quality of build standpoint, this thing is right up there. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's this and the iPhone 4S and then everything else.
I'm talking about tomorrow. I think I'm going to have my hands on the new the Titan 2 tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm
think
hoping
AT&T
to get one of those for review too. Pay attention to the camera on that one. I'm very curious.
Yeah, me too. And you could also check out Paul's podcast on the Twit Network, Windows Weekly, that airs live every Thursday at 2 p.m. East. One of my favorite podcasts, and I say that every week, but I do mean it. I do mean it, Paul.
Me
One
too.
of my favorite podcasts.
Me too.
And of course, you could follow Paul on Twitter at The Rod. You can follow me at Andrew Zarian. Also, guys, it helps us out when you subscribe to our show. We are on iTunes. We are on the Zune. We are on, even BlackBerry has a podcasting thing that we're on. So we're everywhere. You can subscribe to us. It's a big help. It downloads it automatically. We have an audio and video podcast that goes out within a few hours. It should be out by tonight, actually. Suncast, our editor, is very fast at editing the show. It's good, and it makes Paul happy. He's happy when you subscribe. He actually, he'll write you a personal letter of authenticity when you subscribe.
Wow.
No, he won't. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Paul, by the way, that's what you're doing from now on.
Okay.
You're
thanks.
sending out letters. And that's it for us for today. See you next week on What the Tech. Good night, everybody.